Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 104, Gone Bad Abroad. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors. The transition period from adolescence to adulthood is one of the most transformative times of a person's life, and some teens just flounder, rooted to the ground by anxiety or fear about what it means to be an adult, a feeling I still share with this demographic. The angst can be all-consuming, and a common attempted cure is a change of scenery, such as traveling. I mean, of course students study abroad or ride the rails across Europe living that hostile lifestyle for a multitude of varying reasons, but such adventurous travel is a common thread that links the young throughout nations. On this episode of Murderous Minors, we go to beautiful, historic Italy and look at the international scandals some American college kids found themselves in while abroad. I relied heavily on the short documentary 32 Seconds by ABC7 I-Team reporter Dan Noyes made about the case. His extensive reporting for the San Francisco, California area station truly provided the backbone of my research. In addition, we're able to hear from one of the assailants through a statement he gave in court in the spring of 2021. This episode contains mentions of depression, suicidal thoughts, and knife violence. If you're unfamiliar with the story, I'll fill you in. Just over 2 years ago, on July 26, 2019, 35-year-old Mario Cerciello Rega, a vice brigadier with the Carabinieri, a paramilitary police force, was stabbed to death in the middle of the night on a dark street in Rome, Italy. The perpetrator, 19-year-old Finnegan Elder, immediately claimed self-defense. The Italian justice system is unique in that the press is routinely given evidence and information relevant to ongoing investigations, and these leaks are perfectly acceptable. In the case of Elder and 18-year-old Gabriel Natale-Hjorth, the contents of their cell phones, including text messages, photos, and chats from their social media accounts, were all leaked to the Italian media. Countless photos of the pair holding guns to their head or a knife to someone else's head, firing guns in the desert, holding a gun while driving, displaying brass knuckles and knives, plus photos of copious amounts of cocaine, marijuana, and prescription pills, along with lots and lots of cash.
I heard explanations were requested regarding the photos on my phone. I can understand how extreme they are, even if they have nothing to do with what happened. I remember the colonel described one of me playing with a knife between my fingers. The photo with the knife and my girlfriend was obviously a joke. Stupid and in bad taste, but a joke. Those of guns, some were fake, and any others were of friends. Because in California, guns are legal.
The public's perception of the teens only worsened, as if that could have been possible. Officer Cerciello Rega had been hailed a hero since his murder, which left his wife a widow after just 43 days of marriage. He was buried in the same church he'd wed in and had just come back to work from his honeymoon when he was killed. When it comes to true crime podcasts, Generation Y is a pioneer. If you're obsessed with crime mysteries and unsolved murder cases, this show has it all. Hosts Aaron and Justin cover cases from all angles. They break down theories, dive deep into forensic evidence, and discuss their opinions on the most perplexing cases. In one recent episode, you'll hear the story of Brandon Embry, who experienced a violent death in his own apartment, followed by some outrageous claims as to the cause. The medical examiner declared his cause of death as pneumonia, while detectives alleged it was drug-induced self-harm. Why were their stories so inconsistent? And what really happened to Brandon? Or you can listen to another recent episode that covers the murder of 14-year-old Jody Jones. After her boyfriend discovered her body, he was named the only suspect in her murder and sentenced to 20 years, without any forensic evidence. Did the trial rush a conviction to find peace for Jody's family, or was he really the killer? Listening to Aaron and Justin is like listening to my friends, and with so many cases in addition to those to discover, you'll soon realize that those hosts will feel like your friends too. Listen to Wondery's The Generation Y podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or listen ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. Wondery. Feel the story. One of the videos leaked from Natale-Hjorth's cell phone showed the teen handcuffed and blindfolded while being interrogated. Further investigation of the video revealed that Cerciello Rega's partner, Andrea Veriali, had been the officer videotaping and questioning the suspect using Natale-Hjorth's own phone. The pair had been arrested roughly 6 hours after their altercation with the plainclothes officers in their hotel room at Le Méridien Hotel in Rome, Italy. Investigators also located the alleged murder weapon, a K-bar knife with a 7-inch blade and a 5-inch handle, in a ceiling panel of the room.
I'll say this now, because I heard this question was asked. It was my decision, and I don't know if Gabe saw me carrying the knife. He was at the door of the room, and I don't know if he saw what I was doing. During this trial, I understood it was asked, with good reason, as to why I'd brought a knife. Both the reason for which I'd brought it from the United States, as well as why, regretfully, I had it on me that night. First of all,
Prima di tutto,
I'd like to explain that this knife, like many other similar ones, is a replica of an old military knife with different and low-grade materials. Make no mistake, I'm not saying they aren't dangerous, but only explaining you can buy them online or in sporting goods stores like Big Five, where I bought mine. I believe my lawyers deposited a photo of a store window, which I know my mother sent. I often used to go camping or fishing in natural areas near San Francisco, and that was the original reason for which I bought it. Foolishly, I felt safer with that knife. I don't know if this has to do with any of my fears, but the idea of at least having a knife to defend myself, even if I was alone, was reassuring. When I went out with Gabe, I took it with me, but I didn't think I'd have to use it. It gave me a sense of protection, since I had that feeling of fear and anxiety combined with the knowledge that we were about to meet a drug dealer who could show up with his friend. Moreover, I was in a foreign country that was completely unfamiliar to me and whose language I could not understand. I can understand that in a trial, and after what had happened, many arguments can be found against me. But what I'm saying is the truth. I had no aggressive intention. It was a foolish caution dictated by my fears, by the fact that in the U.S., going around with a knife is not strange, and also by a feeling of apprehension, which is understandable, given what had happened earlier in Trastevere. At that moment, I didn't have the slightest idea of what kind of people Sergio or his friends were, and neither did Gabe. To me, they were drug-dealing criminals, and therefore potentially dangerous.
Elder's parents were able to fly to Italy and visit their son, though they would later find out that their time had been recorded, with transcripts released promptly to the media. Once back in San Francisco and following a visit, Elder's American attorney said, quote,
Mr. Elders asked me to make the following statement to the media. We saw our son Finnegan. He was okay, but tired, remorseful, and scared. He has our full support and we stand by his side. Now that we have obtained more information about this matter and have a plan in place to get to the truth, I've returned home, over 6,000 miles away, to care for the rest of my family. Officer Rega, who we understand at the time of his death was acting as an undercover plainclothes paramilitary officer, is gone too soon. This is a tragedy. We continue to hold his family in our thoughts and pray for them during this difficult time. It's understandable, but unfortunate, that people have jumped to conclusions in this matter. It is even more disappointing that in the media and political world, there has been an attempt to make this a case where people either feel the loss from Officer Rega's death or feel that the teenagers are being unfairly charged. Some people seem to think that if you feel one, that you shouldn't feel the other. But that's not the case. We feel both. The public has an incomplete account of the true versions of the events. It is said, however, the truth will set you free. We look forward to the truth coming out and to our son coming home.
It was kind of a fluke that the teens even crossed paths while they were in Europe separately, as Elder was traveling alone and hadn't even planned to visit Italy on his trip, which was already wrapping up by July 26th. They knew each other from back home in the San Francisco Bay Area and had attended Tamalpais High School together, from which Natale-Hjorth graduated in 2018. He went on to complete 1 year of community college before traveling to Italy to visit family with his father and younger brother. Natale-Hjorth was remembered by friends as a loose cannon, and finding out that he had gotten himself in trouble abroad didn't necessarily surprise them. He'd connected with Finn Elder on social media, as Elder was leaving Germany and preparing to travel to Spain, from where he would depart for home. The Europe trip had been somewhat of a last resort in terms of ideas on the part of Finn's parents, as they described him as having a rough few years that had just ended with him finishing a year of community college in San Diego, California. Back in 2016, just before Halloween, Elder had been accused of beating up a football teammate at Sacred Heart, from which he was expelled, resulting in his transfer to Tamalpais High, across the bridge from San Francisco in Mill Valley, California, where Natale-Hjorth already attended. Though Elder's parents describe it as sort of a fight club arrangement in Stern Grove Park, the victim's father said it had been a fight over a girl, and that his son had been in a coma and suffered a traumatic brain injury. Following the transfer of schools, Elder also began working at a car dealership where he suffered a work-related accident that left him with a partially amputated middle finger, an injury that helped to further compromise the stability of his mental health. After being unable to graduate, Elder completed his high school equivalency exam and went on to college, where he began to socialize with a bad crowd. You know the type, and by the time that school year had ended, his mother especially seemed to feel that he needed something different.
During the days before I came to Europe, I was paralyzed in my bed with depression. I'd stay there the whole day, crying, unable to sleep, eat, or communicate with any friends or family. I came to Europe because I needed to change my life and leave the past behind. I knew that if I didn't do anything, I would end up killing myself. I needed to start over. That period of my life was very dark, and at the time, I felt crushed by my psychiatric problems, and I felt overall worthless. Unfortunately, the change I wanted did not happen.
Elder and his parents both stated that the family had a deep connection with Italy, though the complexities of events that happened to his mother there seemed to keep them from adding the country to his travel itinerary.
Since my first days in Germany, I still felt lonely and depressed, but I'd rather not talk about it, because I failed. And even if I did talk about it, you might think that I'm trying to find some excuse. In Germany, I started smoking marijuana again. It was a powerful and continuous addiction, which at the time seemed to be the only thing to stop my fears and calm me down. I hadn't planned on going to Italy during this trip. My parents love this country. It's where they went on their honeymoon. But it's also where a dramatic incident happened to my mother. These are events that we've discussed many times in our family. Me and my sister Alessandra, who was given the Italian form of the name precisely because my parents love Italy, were greatly disturbed by those events. These are family stories that always bothered me, along with other events in my personal life. The idea of coming to Italy came after having exchanged messages with my friend Gabe. It's true that he wasn't a very close friend. We had only attended school together for a few years, but he was still a friend. And since my return flight to the U.S. departed from Barcelona, I thought it'd be good to spend a few days in Rome with someone I know. Because like before, my loneliness was making life difficult. My mother, who had a discount voucher for the La Meridian Hotel, originally booked a room for the night between the 24th and the 25th of July. But it was I, who later on the morning of July 25th, unfortunately asked the reception to extend the reservation for another night. In the afternoon of July 25th, my mom from the United States changed my flight from Rome to
Ha
Barcelona
cambiato il mio volo da Roma a Barcellona
for the evening of July 26th. From Barcelona, I would have had to take another flight to return home. I arrived at the hotel in Rome on the morning of July 24th. I checked in at the front desk, then met Gabe. Then we bought a few things and toured around the beautiful city. On the evening of July 25th, I was still feeling sad and depressed, so I stupidly drank some beers, took a few shots, and took some Xanax pills, thinking that these substances would make me feel better. This is why, along with the advice of an American friend who'd been to Rome, me and Gabe decided to go to Trastevere to look for some cocaine. At the time, I was trying to quit cocaine, but I thought, regretfully, that it would be something to help us enjoy the night. And from past experience, I thought the effect of the drug would make us feel better and give us some energy to walk around and go to bars and clubs. I don't remember exactly the time, but it was late in the night when we reached a square in Trastevere. This is where Gabe asked around to find someone who knew where we could get some cocaine. I understood that a man in the square was immediately referred to as a known drug dealer. I can't say more than this because I didn't speak Italian and don't know exactly what arrangements had been made. I followed Gabe thinking we could get the cocaine we wanted from that man. We went to an ATM to withdraw some money. From what I understood, Ruggetelli introduced himself as Sergio. He looked like a bum or drug dealer and assured Gabe that he dealt cocaine. He said we had to walk a little further to meet the person who would give it to us.
Unbeknownst to the American teens, off-duty officers heard them inquiring about finding someone selling cocaine, and 2 of them followed on a motorcycle to intercept the transaction.
So me and Gabe walked with Sergio through narrow alleys in Trastevere until we reached a larger square. It had trees and stone benches and looked like a park. We sat down, and after a while, Sergio asked Gabe to follow him. They were supposed to cross the street and meet the person who had the cocaine. I was asked to stay by the bench and watch Sergio's backpack and bicycle. After a few minutes, I don't remember exactly how long, I saw Gabe running back. He told me he got played and robbed, and that Sergio and his contact had taken the money without giving him any cocaine.
Gabriel Natale-Hjorth would later tell police that when he was handed the foil packet of what was supposed to be 60 euros worth of cocaine, he dropped it, picked it back up, and thrust it at one of the off-duty officers who had entered the scene.
We waited for a few minutes, and then we thought, the idea was actually mine, that since we'd been robbed, it would be fair to take the dealer's backpack. And so we took it and ran away towards the river, and reached a square with a monument. From there we took a taxi back to the hotel. I would like to specify that to me, taking the backpack was a spontaneous action, something just out of frustration for Gabe being robbed. There was never any intention or thought of using the backpack to get money back. Obviously, I understand that it was wrong to take it, but I acted compulsively with the idea that it was some type of compensation for the 80 euros that were stolen from Gabe. I'd like to point out that what I understood from Gabe's story is that he was robbed by a group of people. I remember he said around 12 people, and that this group gave him the impression that they wanted him to believe they were cops. But in reality, they were acting very strange and aggressive, like criminals. Essentially, those people had given him the impression that they prepared this type of trap to scam people and take money. In the taxi, we looked in the backpack and saw there was a phone and other normal things inside. Gabe took the phone and started calling. I heard him speaking Italian, which I couldn't understand. Then soon after, we arrived at the hotel. I was very tired when we got there and wanted to go to sleep. I texted my girlfriend Christina, making fun of Gabe for what had happened. In my head at that moment, the whole story had ended. The night was over. Gabe was still speaking on the phone in Italian, but I wasn't interested. I immediately laid down in bed from exhaustion. I was very tired and didn't want to go out. While I was texting Christina, I could still hear Gabe speaking in Italian, and at some point he left the room. He returned after a few minutes and told me he'd been looking for a place to meet Sergio. This was because he didn't trust him at all and was afraid Sergio would show up with other people, like with the guy in Trastevere or some of the other guys who had stolen his money.
And that's exactly what was to happen, though it wasn't drug associates they would encounter. It was officers Mario Cerciello Rega and Andrea Veriali in plain clothes, without badges, weapons, or handcuffs in their possession. They had been called as they were on duty and dispatched to pick up the drugs, after which they determined that it was actually Italian Tylenol. Officers Cerciello Rega and Veriali were again dispatched to regain possession of the drug middleman's backpack. Sergio Brugiatelli actually called police to report his backpack had been stolen during a drug deal gone bad, saying that the thieves were demanding 1 gram of cocaine and 100 euros in exchange for its return. The Carabinieri officers responded to a call involving reported extortion.
Gabe thought it was likely they would try to trick him again and not return the money. As I said during my interview, I told him not to go out and made no suggestions at all. However, Gabe returned and shortly after told me that he was going to go alone to meet Sergio and get the money, but he didn't go into detail. He wore the backpack we had taken over his shoulder and looked calm. As I said, I didn't want to leave the hotel, and for a moment, just as he was about to leave, I told him I was okay with him going alone. But then, I felt that letting him go alone was wrong of me and cowardly. I couldn't do that. We wore our sweatshirts and had our hoods on from time to time. We did this for one reason. If Sergio were to arrive with his partners, they probably wouldn't have recognized us, and we could have just left. As we were leaving the room, I foolishly put the knife I brought from America in my sweatshirt pocket. When we left the building of the hotel, Gabe left the backpack in a bush nearby. We stopped for a few minutes by a water fountain. When we hid behind the parked cars, this was because we saw a car passing, and were under the impression that Sergio was arriving with other drug dealers to the meeting place which Gabe had set up, which I later learned to be Via Belli. Meanwhile, Gabe continued talking on the phone in Italian, and at one point he asked me to follow him towards the bank, which I did. We both stood near the pharmacy, not in front of the entrance of the pharmacy, nor on the sidewalk, but in the middle of the street. As Gabe stated, we were more or less on the pedestrian crossing of Via Pietro Cosa. At one point, we heard some footsteps. The street was quiet, and we saw 2 strangers walking. They arrived from the side of the street where the bank was. I thought they were tourists, or just ordinary people, even though they looked shady. In fact, Gabe and I mentioned to each other that they looked strange. But since I saw them talking with each other in front of the bank, I wasn't worried. I thought they could be 2 friends going home from a bar. In any case, Sergio wasn't with them, and it was likely that they had nothing to do with him or the reason for which we were there. At a certain point, well before the pedestrian crossing, they started to cross the street diagonally. They were almost ignoring us, and were walking parallel to the sidewalk of the pharmacy. They went past the point where we were standing. I later figured out that they wanted us to believe they were heading in another direction so they wouldn't scare us off. Then, in the blink of an eye, they turned around and rushed us without saying a single word. The larger of the 2 was truly a mountain of a man. He tackled me to the ground and put all his weight on top of me. I was lying with my back on the asphalt. I remember little of the next few moments, except for the feelings of shock and terror. I do remember, however, that I could feel his hands first on my chest, and then on my neck with pressure, as if he was trying to strangle or choke me as I was struggling to free myself. At this stage, I panicked and believed he wanted to kill me. As soon as I felt his hands squeezing my neck, I instinctively pulled out my knife and hit him a few times in an effort to get him off me. All this lasted a few seconds. I was just terrified. After several hits, he grabbed my hand, the one that I was holding the knife with, and tried to turn it against me. And so, I don't know how, but I reflexively switched hands and hit him again on his side. I can't recall all the details of what else happened. I didn't even have the time to think, because it all happened so fast. My only intention was to free myself from the weight of that person and run away, which I did when he finally let go. I ran away fast and saw Gabe was running too, so we headed to the hotel. I want to point out, and this is what I immediately told both the police who questioned me without an attorney, as well as those who officially interrogated me, that when those men approached, they immediately attacked us, like they wanted to rob or hurt us, without saying a word and without showing any ID or any other object. They didn't even say policia, which sounds like the English word police. I also never heard the word Carabinieri, which I wouldn't have understood in any case. I heard Mr. Variale say, during the trial, that he heard his colleagues say, "Enough, Carabinieri," when the altercation started. As far as I remember, I didn't hear a single word, only a muffled cry of pain, when regretfully, I hit the man who I later learned was a police officer. When I returned to the hotel, I was still under the impression that I'd been attacked by a thug. It was only when I was arrested and taken to the police station and interrogated for several hours that someone told me I had killed a cop, and I was shocked and confused, because in America, police officers, who also of course make mistakes, behave very differently. Officers announce themselves and draw their weapons if someone refuses to be identified. Of course, I realized I had hurt someone. I honestly did not think I had killed him. We were both scared and shocked by what had happened, especially me, since I used the knife. I didn't know what to think. I couldn't understand what had happened. I didn't even think about running away. I immediately took more Xanax and other pills to calm me down. Gabe asked me questions. but I was stunned and my mind was racing. I just explained to him that the guy was going to kill me and that I had to defend myself. I heard someone during the trial ask why we didn't call the police or do something else. I think we were both completely paralyzed with fear. Besides, I had a feeling sooner or later they'd find me, and I didn't think about running away. I also wasn't entirely sure that there would be a thorough investigation, considering those men were drug dealers. I didn't even know if those who attacked us were connected with the events of Brugitelli. It definitely never occurred to me that I was facing an officer. Not only because those men didn't say or show anything verifying that they were police, but also because I never thought that a drug dealer could call the police. This does not happen in America. After that, I was so stressed and exhausted that I fell asleep with the Xanax and didn't wake up until the police raid the next morning. As I said, I never tried to run away. Even though I thought I could be accused of having injured a person, I didn't think that he was dead. Later, that morning, they knocked on the door, and I knew it was the police. So I opened the door and didn't put up any resistance. I believed I could explain.
Once the teens ran off and back to their hotel, Veriali tried to keep his partner alive. However, in the 15 minutes it took for the ambulance to find them, Officer Cerciello Rega lost a life-ending amount of blood and was pronounced dead at the hospital within the hour. Elder and Natale-Hjorth were tracked to their hotel via witnesses who saw them running there. Blood droplets in the hotel lobby, and Sergio Brugitelli's backpack stuffed in a potted plant out front. Veriali told police, quote, "We immediately noticed the presence of two subjects with a clearly cautious and suspicious attitude," going on to say that he and his partner approached the pair suddenly and identified themselves, adding, quote, "But the two attacked us with extreme rapidity and violence." He identified the assailants as likely of North African descent, maybe Moroccan. Officer Veriali ended up being charged with dereliction of duty once it came out that he had lied about having his service weapon at the time of the attack, and the officer who corroborated his story by saying he got the gun from him at the hospital was demoted. Both officers' guns, badges, and handcuffs were found locked up at their station. The story brought forth by Officer Veriali, one of only 4 people present at the time, differed vastly from that of Elder, as Veriali said that he and his partner approached the American teens head-on, and that Officer Cerciello Rega was attacked from the front. Officer Veriali testified to this, his original story, in court, even though the autopsy report states that his partner was stabbed in the sides and back, a total of 11 times, with a stab to the armpit proving fatal. The medical examiner's findings do not support Officer Veriali's version of events. Dual Italian-American citizen Gabriel Natale-Hjorth's testimony was never released. Elder used his statement in court as a time to clarify that he didn't agree with Veriali's story, but regardless, both were found guilty on May 5, 2021 of homicide, attempted extortion, resisting a public official, and carrying an attack-style knife without just cause. Both were sentenced to life in prison. However, Elder's attorney Craig Peters pointed out that this is just a beginning for his client.
It's bewildering. They gave him and they gave Gabe a sentence that is befitting a mafia boss who wantonly kills innocent people. How could these two boys possibly be in that same league? In America, the end of that first trial is most of the time the end of the road. But in Italy, it's very different. So we're trying to remind him that there is a whole nother trial, essentially, that's going to happen at the appellate level, where hopefully we will have more sophisticated, more experienced, more reasonable and rational judges who will actually do the hard work of trying to make sense of all this and then fairly apportion justice.
Following the verdict, Gabriel Natale-Hjorth's parents stated, quote, "Our family is astounded that Gabriel was convicted, without a shred of evidence against him, of a crime he did not commit. We can only hope that the appeals court will make its decision based on the facts as opposed to the prosecution's unfounded arguments and therefore recognize Gabriel's innocence." While Elder's attorney Craig Peters said, quote, "The message sent by these judges is loud and clear. Those in a position of power, the Carabinieri and the prosecutors, can lie and mislead and they will not be held responsible. Those accused can tell the truth and acknowledge their own part in wrongdoing, and they will not receive credit for doing so. This is a sad day for holding those in positions of power accountable. This is a sad day for justice. Italian courts are required to submit in writing the justifications for sentences within 90 days, with such reports going on to form the basis of a defendant's appeal, and in mid-July 2021, they did so in this case, releasing a 346-page document detailing their reasoning, stating, quote, "How can the court not ask itself why Vice Brigadier Cerciello, in service for more than 20 years, about whom all spoke of his professionalism, his dedication to work, his experience on the streets, his humanity, ought to have strangled Elder as the defendant contended? And if the intention of the two officers was to kill, why would Veriali not have done the same thing with Natale, leaving alive an inconvenient witness?" Vice Brigadier Cerciello can't offer his version, but his martyred body speaks for him and attests to the murderous fury of Elder.